Good afternoon. Today's Tuesday, and since it's still January, we're gonna take any spare time we have for deep cleaning. And since we've finished in the kitchen, the next area that we're going to do is this toy and book area. And next to the kitchen, this is probably the most used corner of the house. So a lot of clutter accumulates here in this corner. Whereas the rest of the house, to deep clean, is basically just washing down the walls and the ceiling and the windows. But because this area needs some decluttering as well, my strategy is to get started before the kids come home from school, because I know myself and the kids well enough that if I don't get started before they come home from school, I'll be tempted to push it off for another day, because they'll have their own ideas of what they want to do when they come home from school, and they'll probably be able to talk me into pushing it off for another day. I can easily be talked out of deep cleaning. And I'll be like, oh, we did the kitchen, that's good enough for this year. But I know there's a lot of things on these shelves that we no longer use, so they're just taking up space that could be used more efficiently. So I have a couple hours before the kids come home from school. I'm gonna first work on the toy boxes in the bottom, because if I don't do that without the little boys here, I won't get to throw out things like I want to, because they'll want to keep some of the broken things that if I throw them out, they'll never miss them. But so I'm gonna start with the toy boxes, and I'm gonna wash our Christmas stained glass window, and then when the kids come home, we're gonna work on the books. We're gonna take them all out, wipe every shelf down, and then sort through the books, fix any that are broken, donate the ones we no longer want, and maybe even put some board books into storage for the future. Okay, so now that we've sorted all the toys, we're gonna make a clean space to put our organized toys back to where they belong. So first off, I pulled the bench forward, and then first thing I'm going to do is use my broom and dustpan, and I'm gonna get all the coarse dirt, and then I'm gonna use my vacuum, and I'm gonna get all the dust. And then last of all, I'm going to use my hot soapy water, and I'm gonna wash everything up before we put anything back. So since I already have soapy water and a rag, and my water's not too filthy, since the dirt that was behind there was mostly dust, I'm going to give this whole window a once over with this water before I get clean water. So I've gotten fresh water, and I'm just gonna go over this window again. So when you're first cleaning something, you'll want your rag pretty wet because you'll want to be using a lot of water. And then my second wiping is usually with a rag that I've squeezed as much water out as I can. And that's when I clean up the rest of the dirt then. Because a rag that's squeezed as dry as possible is a rag that's cleaner than a rag that's holding some dirty water. So one of the other tools that I'll use in a place where my knife can't get is a little flathead screwdriver. So when I'm talking about cleaning windows, I'm not just talking about cleaning the glass. I'm talking about cleaning out every little spot. And one of the tools I'm using to finish cleaning is a little flathead screwdriver. I'm gonna cover it with a rag. So now that we have washed the window with soap and water, and we've taken our rag and the screwdriver, and I've gotten every little corner of dirt that would be moved. And while I was cleaning it, I was reminded of something my Mennonite grandma used to say when I was helping her deep clean her windows. And she was very particular about her windows. Like, I had to do them over so many times before she was pleased with my job. So when I'm cleaning windows, I always hear my grandma, and one of the phrases that she would say in Pennsylvania Dutch, as she would hand me a screwdriver and a rag, would be "Drek komases ekle van mitwit." And translated to English, that means "Dirt, get out of the corner if you want to go along." And that was her way of gently reminding me that all the dirt has to be gotten out of all the corners. So I'm going to show you my corners and how my grandma taught me to do corners. Okay, so I've gotten every piece of dirt that would be moved, or at least that's what I'm telling myself. With that screwdriver and the rag, I moved every piece of dirt. You know, there's some corners that are just, you know, old house corners. And well, it looks like I could get some more dirt off there. But as far as on the vinyl of the window, I have removed every piece of dirt that my screwdriver and my rag possibly could have. So what I'm gonna do next is, these are tilt-in windows. Before I go get clean water, I am going to tilt in the window and use my soapy water to wipe down the outside of the window, because I know there's a lot of dirt from the gravel road on the outside of this window, and I'm just gonna give it a once over with my soapy water before I start polishing it. So now that I've washed most of the coarse dirt off of the glass part of the window, I have my window rag and water without any soap. So I'm gonna link these rags, and this is all I use for my windows and my stainless steel appliances, and they're almost like a suede cloth, and I don't need any soap. Anyway, so when I had my soapy water, I made sure to go along the edge of the window very well so that I don't cause any streaks by picking up dust with my polishing rag when I get against the edge. So I'm just gonna do the outside of the window first and polish up that glass. So now that our window is clean, I can sit by it and tell you a little bit about our toy system for our children. So we don't have a lot of square footage. We don't have a basement. We basically have the main floor, and then we have the bedrooms. And I'm not a huge fan of toys in the bedrooms, even though it does happen. And when we added our 3 little boys in 2 years, it was the first time that we had more than 2 of one gender in birth order. So toys, having 3 preschoolers meant toys were over our entire house. And I'm not anti-toy, I just really dislike clutter in our main living area. So one of the systems that we used that worked so well was a toy rotation. And because we had room for storage, I started out with dividing all their toys into sets. So there was the train set, and then all their farming sets, and then there was their Legos, and then their Matchbox cars and puzzles. I divided them all into sets. I got big totes, and I put all the toys that belonged into each set together. And then I put them all into storage except the one set. And then right here in this toy area, we would keep one set of toys. Like maybe it was their train set, and they would play with it. You know, of course, the younger they were, the longer they would play, because every morning they get up, it was kind of new again. But as they got older, and they started having memory of the toys that are in storage, they started asking for them more often. But we would then just rotate, and it was very simple for me to just get all the toys that belonged in that set, take them into storage and bring down another set, and it kept the toys fresh and new and exciting for them. And so when I was sorting toys, I was finding toys that belonged with a set that we don't currently have down here. So all the Nerf gun bullets and all their weapons, these all go into a set. And then these toys, these are their feed sacks, and these two little cows and a skid loader scoop. I found these belong with their farming toys. So I have a whole tote full of animals and tractors and hay bales and fences, and these belong in that tote. Now, the other thing is they will have their favorites that they go back to every day for a little bit. And for my boys, that is their Matchbox cars. And so their Matchbox cars stay in here because they come back to these. Now with them both being in school, they come back to these multiple times in a week. So these never get put away. So when I bring a tote down, I would have one empty basket right here, and whatever doesn't fit in there just goes right here in the tote. And the other thing that's very popular with them right now is their Nerf guns. I think they play Nerf guns almost every day. So they have a container upstairs in their room where all their weapons get put in and all their bullets stay up there. And now that they're older and more capable of cleaning up after themselves, I'll just say, hey, go put these up with your guns. But we haven't put the Nerf guns into storage in over a year. And when I see that they're losing interest in something, I will put the toys into storage and bring down something else. But as the boys get older, they have zoned in on their favorite toys, and we don't rotate as often. Like the Legos, the Nerf guns, the Matchbox cars, those are things that stay available to them, and we don't put them into storage. In the summertime, I may put the Legos away because they're outside so much, but all winter the Legos stay available to them, and that keeps, like being on a rotation like that, keeps our main living area from getting overrun with toys, and it keeps us from having more toys than we have storage space for. So now that we've got the bottom part and the window all clean, the next thing I'm going to do is take everything off of every shelf. Now some years I'll just do one shelf at a time, and especially this works when you have little ones underfoot, because you don't want to take everything down because they'll just take it all over the house. But the reason I'm taking everything off before I start cleaning is because I want to encourage myself to change up our system and what's on each shelf. Because up here at the top, you see those little gray baskets. What is in there is markers and crayons and games with little pieces. The reason they're all the way up there is I used to have little people, like the little boys weren't safe with access to markers and crayons. They had to have permission, so then I had to get up there and get them down and say, okay, sit here at the table. And that system was very necessary when you had 3 little boys in the house. And Play-Doh was all the way at the top because they needed permission for that. We don't just play Play-Doh whenever we want. We need to clean everything else up, and we need to play Play-Doh at the table so it's not all over the house. It's just the kind of system I run around here. But now the boys are much more capable of being responsible with markers and crayons, and they won't write on the walls, hopefully. So we really don't need to have all those up there because they're constantly trying to jump up to get them down, or they need one of us, a taller person, to get them down for them. So that's why I'm taking everything down, is because I want to change up the system a little bit, and I want to go through all the books, and I want to put the easy readers where they're easily accessed by my early readers, by my 1st and 2nd grader, and then I want the books, the chapter books. I want more chapter books available and less picture books. just because that's the stage we're in. So I'm gonna take everything down. Well, the kids are home and they have found some of their favorite games.
Yes! We got it! No. Oh yeah.
So we've gotten very distracted with all our family photo albums. This is the only further we've come in the 40 minutes that the kids are home from school. So now that we've got everything off the shelf, I am going to do a quick dusting of the shelves, and then I will wipe them all down. Now these shelves, especially the top ones, are not very dirty, so they'll just need a quick wipe down, and it's the bottom ones that have more fingerprints and need a little more elbow grease to get clean. Kendrick, go get me the tape so I can fix the book. So now's the part where we put everything back. And before we put it back, we ask ourselves these questions. Do we still need this? Do we still want this? Like, does anybody still value this book or this game? Do we still play it? And if we don't want it anymore, and if it doesn't have any value to the family anymore, do we throw it out, or is it in good enough shape that we can donate it? And this is why I have to do decluttering and deep cleaning in short amounts of space, because I get decision fatigue from making so many decisions, because the more things you own, the more decisions you have to make when you are deep cleaning. Okay, do you remember this one, Harrison? T is for turbo.
Oh yeah, T's for turbo. T's for turbo. Oh yeah, that.
Critter litter.
What's this one? T's for turbo. I don't see that whale one. A is for wait. A is for rodent. Right. I keep it number. T is for books that we can't even find and remember. What is it? I'm looking for the tools. Keys. Whoa, look at that, Mom. Somebody must be a way on it. I'm eating raw fish. Not raw, it's a cooked. Jen, instead, could you put this one? It's time for bed, sleepyhead. No, take Zed instead. It's time for bed, sleepyhead. No, take Ned instead. That's the neighbor. No.
Kendrick, that stack right there goes on that bottom shelf.
Look. I remember when I always used to that part you have to say, now what of these guys?
Oh, then you had to name them.
Yeah. Oh, that is that guy. Whoa. Okay, I'm gonna find this guy before. Oh, yes, I am.
You guys sit up here. They drove all day long and into the night, and while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and different mountains, and they thought about their almost purple grapes back home. They thought about Virginia, but they thought about us too, waiting for them. So they drank up all their pop, and they ate up all their crackers, and they traveled up all those miles until finally they pulled into our yard. Then it was hugging time. Talk about hugging. Those relatives just passed us all around their car, pulling us against their wrinkled Virginian clothes, crying sometimes. They hugged us for hours.
Hey, Mom, I think they're rednecks.
What makes you say that?
Because they look like them with the cars over. And that.
Yeah. You think they're rednecks?
Yeah.
I think you're right. Then it was into the house. So much hugging and shining faces and hugging in the doorways. You'd have to go through at least 4 different hugs to get from the kitchen to the front room. Those relatives. And finally, after a big supper, 2 or 3 times around until we all finally got a turn at the table, there was quiet talk, and we were in 2s and 3s throughout the house. The relatives weren't particular about beds, which was good since there weren't any extras. Yeah. So a few squeezed in with us and the rest slept on the floor. Some with their arms thrown over the closest person, and some with an arm across one person and a leg across the other.
Like,
it was different going to sleep with all that new breathing in the house. The relatives stayed for weeks and weeks. They helped us tend the garden, and they fixed any broken things they could find. They ate up all our strawberries and melons, and then they promised that we could eat up all their grapes and peaches when we came to Virginia. But none of us thought about Virginia much. We were so busy hugging and eating and breathing together. Finally, after a long time, the relatives loaded up their ice chests and headed back to Virginia at 4 in the morning. We stood there in our pajamas and waved them off in the dark. We watched the relatives disappear down the road. Then we crawled back into our beds that felt too big and too quiet, and we fell asleep. And the relatives drove on all day long and into the night. And while they traveled, they looked at the strange houses and different mountains, and they thought about their dark purple grapes waiting at home in Virginia. And they thought about us too, missing them, and they missed us. And when they were finally home in Virginia, they crawled into their silent, soft beds. And they dreamed about next summer.
Grapes. The grapes on the mountain.
One of the most rewarding things about having a clean and organized space is that it fosters creativity, not only in adults, but in children as well.